The room was silent, except for the low hum of the air conditioning and the occasional shuffle of papers. Fluorescent lights flickered above, casting a sterile glow on the faces of the assembled SEAL team. They had trained together for years, yet tonight, tension hung thicker than any mission briefing they had endured. Maps of the target area were spread across a long steel table, satellite images pinned to whiteboards, and intelligence reports stacked in neat piles. The SEAL commander, a grizzled man with scars both physical and mental, scanned the room with a cold, practiced eye. "All right, gentlemen," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "We've got a high-value target locked down in hostile territory. Hostages are involved. And most importantly," he paused, letting the weight of his next words sink in, "who's the marksman?" A ripple of murmurs swept across the team. Each SEAL exchanged looks, subtle smirks forming as if the answer was obvious. Some adjusted the straps on their gear, flexing their fingers over triggers, ready to stake a claim. Pride and bravado filled the room. Each man had hunted, shot, and survived in situations like this before. They were confident, experienced, and deadly. But none of them realized that tonight, the marksmanship in question was something far more precise and deadly than any they had encountered before. In the corner of the room sat a figure almost invisible in the sea of rugged operators. A female A-10 pilot in her flight suit sat quietly with her legs crossed, hands folded on her lap. Her helmet rested beside her, and a tablet illuminated her face with soft light as she scrolled through intelligence files, adjusting coordinates and observing enemy layouts. She had been quiet all throughout the preliminary briefings, her presence subtle, unassuming, almost forgotten amid the chatter of male voices debating insertion points and weapon choices. Yet, beneath that calm exterior, her mind was a storm of calculation, strategy, and lethal precision. The SEALs noticed her only in passing, a nod of acknowledgement at most. "Another pilot," someone muttered, not unkindly, but with the assumption that her role was limited to air support. They didn't know the truth. She was not just a pilot, she was trained for long-range targeting, joint operations with SEALs, and had spent countless hours in hostile environments practicing aerial coordination with ground units. Every calculation she made in her mind could mean the difference between life and death. The commander's gaze lingered on her for a brief moment, but he moved on, addressing the rest of the team. "We're looking at a fortified compound, heavily guarded. Intel is solid but limited. We have hostages who have been moved frequently, and every window of opportunity is tight. We'll need infiltration, tactical precision, and—" he glanced again around the room, letting the unspoken tension hang. "A marksman who can make every shot count." The room buzzed with speculation. Who would step up? Some of the men were known sharpshooters, their reputations earned in firefights across deserts, mountains, and urban war zones. Yet no one moved to claim the title immediately. Pride warred with caution. They knew the cost of overconfidence. Her eyes, calm and focused, moved over the maps on the table. Every angle, every line of sight, every potential blind spot in the enemy compound was cataloged in her mind. She traced the routes the SEALs might take, calculating where snipers could be placed, how suppressive fire could be coordinated, and where she could provide the most effective aerial overwatch. She noted patterns in the guards' patrols, the positioning of fortified checkpoints and likely ambush zones. "Here," she said quietly, her voice soft but clear, and pointed to a line on the map showing a long alley behind the compound. The team turned in surprise. They hadn't noticed the approach. The commander raised an eyebrow. "Explain," he prompted, his tone skeptical but curious. "The alley is unguarded between patrol rotations," she explained. "It provides a direct line of sight for extraction, but it's also covered from above. With proper timing, it could be a clean entry and exit point. I can coordinate overwatch from the air to neutralize the blind spots." A few SEALs exchanged looks, impressed despite themselves. The quiet pilot's observations were meticulous, almost surgical. She didn't boast, she didn't demand recognition. She simply provided calculated solutions. Yet, in her silence, authority radiated. The commander nodded slowly. Interesting. And you're confident you can maintain Overwatch without exposing the team? Yes, sir, she replied simply, her eyes still scanning the digital map. I'll monitor all angles. You'll have live feed of enemy positions. I can direct suppressive fire and ensure the safest path for extraction. A tense silence filled the room. None of the SEALs had expected this level of detail and precision from a pilot. They had assumed the marksman would be one of them, someone on the ground with a rifle. Yet here was someone whose battlefield control extended beyond personal weaponry. She could command the fight from above, orchestrating lethal precision with every move they made. The commander leaned back, studying her closely. Something in her composure, the quiet confidence, the almost imperceptible authority made him reconsider. Maybe this silent operator was more than just a support role. Maybe, just maybe, she was exactly what they needed. The team spent the next hour running through contingencies, movement strategies, and emergency protocols. The SEALs argued over cover fire, insertion timing, and sniper assignments. Each time they overlooked a detail, she corrected it silently or whispered a precise calculation. Slowly, the room's dynamic began to shift. Prideful assumptions gave way to respect. What was once a room of individual experts became a coordinated unit under the quiet guidance of a single, observant mind. As the briefing drew to a close, the SEALs left the room, equipment checks underway, adrenaline already surging. The commander stayed behind for a moment, looking at the pilot. "We'll see if you really are the marksman," he said, half challenging, half curious. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, never breaking her calm demeanor. In that moment, the stage was set. The silent pilot's presence had already begun to change the mission's outcome before a single shot had been fired. The SEALs didn't yet realize it, but the true marksmanship wasn't about who could pull a trigger fastest. It was about vision, precision, and the calm mind guiding the chaos. And in this room, in this moment, that skill was quietly waiting to be revealed. The hum of the helicopters outside the base echoed faintly through the walls as the SEAL team gathered around a larger digital map in the operations center. The target compound had been identified in satellite imagery weeks ago, a heavily fortified stronghold deep in hostile territory. Hostages were confirmed inside, moved frequently by the enemy to avoid detection. The mission was clear: infiltrate, rescue, neutralize threats, and extract with zero casualties. Every operator in the room knew the stakes. Failure was unacceptable, and the cost of mistakes was measured in lives. The SEAL commander addressed the team, his tone measured but tense. "Listen carefully. Intelligence is solid but incomplete. Guards rotate every 20 minutes. Cameras are sporadic but deadly. Hostiles are armed with automatic weapons and trained in urban combat. We've only got one chance at this." He paused, letting the words settle. The men leaned in instinctively, absorbing every detail. Some ran through mental checklists, ammo, breaching tools, medkits, while others scanned the maps, tracing potential entry points. "And," the commander continued, "we still need a marksman, someone capable of controlling the field from long range and providing real-time guidance under fire." Eyes shifted across the team. Each SEAL was an experienced operator, having survived firefights in deserts, mountains, and urban war zones. Each thought he would naturally fill the role. Pride, bravado, and habit had all prepared them for this moment. Yet no one moved forward immediately. Pride and perhaps intuition restrained them. The female A-10 pilot sat quietly at the edge of the table, reviewing digital maps and satellite overlays on her tablet. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the terrain like a hawk, calculating angles, cover points, and lines of sight. Unlike the SEALs, she did not rely solely on instinct or prior battlefield experience. Her mind moved like a machine, simulating the mission in virtual space, tracking guard rotations, sniper blind spots, and likely ambush zones. Every detail was cataloged with surgical precision. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but clear enough to cut through the room's low hum. The southeast alley provides a direct path to the extraction point, but it's covered from above. Timing is critical. Suppressive fire needs to align with our movement window. If we move during the patrol shift, we avoid exposure. The SEALs turned, surprised. One of them raised an eyebrow. "You've been watching this entire time?" he asked, a hint of skepticism in his voice. "Yes," she replied simply. "I've reviewed the patrol schedules, structural weaknesses, and vantage points. I can provide overwatch and coordinate close air support. Every approach the team might consider has been calculated, and I can adjust on the fly to changing enemy positions." A brief silence followed. The commander's eyes narrowed, scanning her calmly. He had seen countless operators, brash, confident men who claimed to be the best. Few had ever commanded attention without raising their voices or brandishing weapons. This woman, however, radiated authority in her calm, measured observation. "Well," he said finally, his voice betraying a hint of curiosity, "if you're willing to put your theory to the test, you'll have control of Overwatch. But this is a live environment. One miscalculation and the team pays the price." "I understand, sir," she said. There was no hesitation, no arrogance, just absolute certainty. The SEALs exchanged subtle glances. Some nodded, impressed despite themselves. The dynamics of the team began to shift. Prideful bravado gave way to quiet respect. The quiet operator in the corner was not just a pilot, she was a strategist, capable of influencing the mission from above. As planning continued, the team ran through possible insertion points. One operator suggested the west wall. Another proposed a rooftop approach. The pilot evaluated each scenario instantly, running mental simulations. "The rooftop is covered from 3 angles," she said. "We risk exposure if we breach there first. The alley provides concealment and a clear path to extraction if we synchronize suppressive fire with my air support. I can guide the team step by step." Her calculations were precise. She considered every factor: distance, cover, potential enemy response, and timing. Every option the team debated had been filtered through her mind, and every correction was subtle but critical. Even the most experienced SEALs found themselves pausing, absorbing her insight. Hours passed as the team rehearsed contingencies. The pilot stayed calm throughout, her presence quiet but commanding. Occasionally, she interjected with suggestions: how to position snipers, when to move, which angles provided maximum visibility while minimizing exposure. Her calculations were flawless, based on logic, timing, and battlefield physics. Each suggestion enhanced the team's understanding of the environment, and gradually, confidence in her guidance grew. The SEAL commander observed her closely, studying how she interacted with the team. Unlike most operators who thrived on verbal dominance, she commanded attention through precision, focus, and understanding of the battlefield. Her silence was not weakness. It was an unspoken assertion of control. "Coordinates and timing are everything," she murmured softly, tracing a line with her finger on the map. "If we move too soon, we trigger patrols. Too late, and hostiles rotate into overwatch positions. I've adjusted for wind, elevation, and visual cover. We move in windows of 60 seconds. Every second outside that window increases risk exponentially." The room was quiet, the SEALs captivated. Her calculations were so thorough, so precise, that even the most hardened operators could not find a flaw. She had taken what was once chaotic and dangerous and transformed it into a controlled, predictable sequence. Finally, the commander leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. "All right, we leave in 3 hours. All teams meet at the staging point. Pilot," he said, nodding toward her, "you coordinate overwatch and provide live feed. The rest of us will follow your direction." She nodded, her calm expression unchanged. The team left the room, checking gear, adjusting rifles, and rehearsing movements. Their adrenaline buzzed, their minds racing with anticipation. Yet a sense of order had settled over them, anchored by the quiet, calculating presence of the A-10 pilot. As the last operator exited, the commander lingered, glancing at her one final time. "We'll see if you really are the marksman," he muttered under his breath, half challenging, half curious. She simply gave a faint nod, already planning angles, timing, and strategies in her mind. Outside the window, the first hints of twilight broke over the horizon. Soon, the helicopters would carry them into enemy territory. Every operator knew the danger. Every operator trusted the plan. But none truly understood the force quietly orchestrating it all from above. The silent pilot, the one no one had noticed at first, would soon reveal the true meaning of precision, timing, and marksmanship. The mission was set, the team ready, and the stage was prepared. All that remained was execution. The whir of rotor blades shook the air as the SEALs climbed into the waiting helicopters. Night had fallen completely, casting a shadowy veil over the base and the surrounding terrain. The smell of fuel, sweat, and adrenaline hung thickly in the cabin. Each operator checked weapons, double-checked gear, and ran mental checklists, their movements automatic but tense. Their minds were focused on one thing: the enemy compound and the hostages trapped inside. The female A-10 pilot settled in a corner of the helicopter, her tablet open and her eyes scanning satellite imagery and live intelligence feeds. She adjusted coordinates and marked likely patrol paths with a precision born of years of training. Unlike the SEALs, who relied heavily on experience and intuition, she relied on calculations, timing, and angles, factoring in wind, elevation, and every variable that could affect the mission. Her silence was not unnoticed. A few of the men stole glances, curiosity and respect mingling with disbelief. "All right, which one of you thinks they're the marksman?" a young SEAL asked, attempting levity as a tension breaker. His voice was louder than intended, echoing in the small cabin. The others smirked and shifted uneasily, some flexing their fingers over triggers. "Don't get cocky," muttered another, scanning his rifle scope. "We all know it's not a joke when bullets start flying." The pilot didn't respond. Her eyes remained on her tablet, tracing invisible lines, calculating probabilities with deadly accuracy. Every detail she observed, the rotation of the enemy patrols, gaps in cover, angles for suppressive fire, fed into her mental map. She was already orchestrating the mission in her mind, long before a single SEAL had moved outside the helicopter. As the helicopters lifted into the night sky, the base lights receded, replaced by the darkness of the open desert and the distant glow of the enemy compound. Conversation died down, replaced by the low hum of engines and the rhythmic thumping of adrenaline in every operative's ears. Each SEAL had trained for countless missions, yet none had experienced the combination of uncertainty and precision that tonight demanded. Flashbacks flickered in her mind, countless hours of flight training, target acquisition exercises, and previous missions supporting ground operations. Each scenario had honed her ability to anticipate enemy movements and coordinate precise strikes. She had worked with SEAL teams before, but never on a mission of this magnitude. Every calculation, every adjustment she made in the next few hours could mean the difference between success and disaster. One of the senior SEALs, noticing her calm, leaned over slightly. "You really think you can guide us from up there?" he asked, skeptical yet intrigued. "I don't think I calculate," she replied simply, eyes still scanning patterns on her tablet. "Every patrol, every blind spot, every rotation is accounted for. You follow my guidance and exposure is minimized. Deviate and risk increases exponentially. Timing is everything." The words hung in the air, quiet but potent. The men looked at her differently now. Bravado and assumptions were fading, replaced by a grudging respect for someone who could command a battlefield silently, without fire or threats, merely by precision and intellect. The helicopter banked slightly as it followed the pre-planned route. Below, shadows of the desert stretched like dark veins across the landscape. She traced possible insertion points, nodding wind direction and cover. "The southeast alley is clear for a 60-second window," she murmured softly into the comms, her voice calm but firm. "Move immediately upon landing. Suppressive fire will align perfectly if executed now. The SEALs listened, some exchanging incredulous glances. She was directing the mission from the air with a clarity and precision none of them had expected. It was one thing to fly missions. It was another to coordinate every detail of a ground assault while under potential enemy fire. Minutes passed, each one stretched taut with anticipation. The darkness below hid dangers at every step: patrols, snipers, tripwires, and booby traps. Every calculation mattered. Every misstep could cost lives. The helicopter descended slightly, adjusting altitude as the pilot's guidance sharpened. The SEALs checked weapons again, their muscles tense, eyes scanning shadows, but they now relied on her insight more than instinct. She mapped out contingencies in her mind. If the guards shifted unexpectedly, she had backup coordinates. If a sniping angle became dangerous, she could redirect fire from the air. Every pathway was measured, every probability considered. The SEALs, normally the hunters, were becoming the hunted, guided by her unseen hand. "Enemy thermal sensors," she murmured softly, almost to herself. "Avoid direct line of sight. 2 trees cover the approach perfectly. Use shadows." The senior SEALs exchanged surprised glances. She was seeing angles and threats that even their extensive training hadn't accounted for. Her calmness under pressure amplified the sense of inevitability. The mission would be carried out not by luck, but by precision. As they flew closer, the first faint lights of the enemy compound appeared, flickering like distant stars in the night. The men stiffened, grips tightening. Each second now carried weight. She adjusted coordinates once more, eyes scanning movement patterns, ensuring every SEAL knew when and where to move. One of the younger operators whispered nervously, "I didn't think someone could make this clear before we even hit the ground." The pilot didn't look up. Clarity comes from observation, calculation, and patience. The team acts, I guide. Timing and positioning are everything. Hesitate and the advantage is lost. Trust the plan, trust the execution. By the time the helicopters approached the drop zone, tension had reached its peak. The SEALs were ready, adrenaline surging, muscles taut. The female pilot, quiet but commanding, had transformed their preparation from a room of individual experts into a single cohesive unit. Her presence, subtle yet undeniable, had redefined leadership in their eyes. The rotor blades hummed louder as the descent began. Dust kicked up from the desert floor. Shadows of the team moved like phantoms against the terrain below. Every operator understood one truth now. Success depended not only on their training, courage, and skill, but on the silent strategist guiding them from above. The real marksman wasn't just a sharpshooter. It was the mind orchestrating every lethal movement, unseen, precise, and utterly unstoppable. The ground drew closer. The mission was about to begin. The helicopters hovered low, the desert wind whipping sand and dust into swirling clouds around the landing zone. Shadows stretched across the ground, masking both opportunity and danger. The SEALs checked their gear one last time, rifles slung, sidearms loaded, breaching tools ready. Their training had prepared them for this moment, yet the tension in the air was tangible, gripping every muscle and nerve. The mission had been meticulously planned, but the enemy was unpredictable. Every second counted. "Touchdown in 30 seconds, the helicopter pilot called, voice steady over the intercom. The SEAL commander gave a curt nod. "Remember your angles, stay silent and follow the plan." The female A-10 pilot, calm as ever, adjusted her headset. "Overwatch active, coordinates locked, monitor southeast alley for movement. Suppressive fire ready to align with extraction window. Team, move on my call." Her voice carried a quiet authority, precise and measured. Every syllable reinforced the trust the team had developed in her during the briefing and the flight. The first SEAL rappelled down the rope, landing with practiced grace into the shadows. One by one the others followed, moving in silent synchronization, boots barely stirring the sand. The female pilot observed from above, eyes scanning thermal feeds, night vision overlays, and satellite imagery. tracking every movement of the enemy compound and her team. Her mind was a battlefield command center, calculating trajectories, angles, and timing with surgical precision. A sudden crack of gunfire shattered the tense silence. A distant guard had spotted movement. SEALs ducked behind cover, bullets kicking up sand around them. "Suppressive fire," the commander barked, instinctively diving into a crouch behind a low wall. From above, the pilot's voice remained steady. "Coordinates for Overwatch locked. Engage at the second window. Avoid exposure from the northwest tower." A SEAL peered over the wall, trying to get a line on the enemy. His shot went wide, bullets striking nothing but the desert floor. Frustration crept in. The enemy was well trained, moving unpredictably, and the terrain was deceptive. "Hold fire," the pilot instructed calmly. "Move 2 meters left. Cover behind the rock formation. Target at 210 degrees. Fire on my mark." The SEAL followed her guidance. The bullet found its mark. A guard slumped silently, eliminated before he could alert the others. The team froze, absorbing the precision of her timing. Each instruction from above was perfect. No hesitation, no mistakes, only efficiency. The SEAL commander's eyes widened in quiet astonishment. This was no ordinary pilot providing air support. This was an operator in her own right, orchestrating the battlefield with an unseen hand. Her calculations, timing, and understanding of angles were flawless. Even seasoned SEALs found themselves impressed, caught off guard by her command of the operation. The team advanced cautiously. Dust swirled, shadows shifted, and the compound loomed larger with every step. The pilot tracked each move, ready to redirect suppressive fire and call in air support if the enemy reacted unexpectedly. Her calm, measured voice never wavered, even as bullets ricocheted nearby. "Hostiles approaching northeast perimeter," she noted. 2 meters left. Suppressive fire from Overwatch will cover movement." The SEALs obeyed without hesitation. Shots rang out, precise and controlled, timed perfectly with her instructions. Each movement minimized risk, maximizing effectiveness. The enemy, trained and armed, found themselves neutralized before they could react, as if the battlefield itself was anticipating their moves. One SEAL paused, glancing at the pilot's feed on his tablet. "She's seeing everything," he muttered under his breath, all creeping into his tone. The quiet operator had become the unseen force dictating life and death. Every step, every shot, every decision was guided by her mind. The SEALs pressed forward, advancing toward the compound's outer wall. The hostages were still inside, and every second counted. The pilot monitored windows, doorways, and guards, her voice a steady anchor in the chaos. "Left flank covered. Use shadows. Breach point clear. Suppressive fire aligned." A brief exchange of gunfire erupted as the SEALs neared the wall. Enemy bullets struck rocks and debris, some too close for comfort. The team hesitated, caught between reaction and strategy. "Move now," she instructed firmly. "Cover aligned, target neutralized." The SEALs advanced in perfect synchronization, taking advantage of her guidance. The hostiles, caught between the ground assault and precise fire from above, were unable to coordinate a defense. The first breach was successful. The wall was scaled, and the team entered the compound, every movement pre-planned, every risk accounted for. Inside, shadows and narrow hallways tested their training. The enemy's defensive positions were more sophisticated than anticipated, yet the pilot's coordination turned potential chaos into controlled progression. "Room 3 secure. Proceed to staircase," she instructed. "Thermal readings indicate hostiles ahead. Engage only on my mark." The team paused briefly, waiting for the calculated moment. Bullets rang out, suppressive fire neutralizing threats while minimizing exposure. Each SEAL moved with confidence, guided by her unseen hand, orchestrating the mission like a symphony of violence and precision. The first hostages were located, frightened but unharmed. Relief washed over the SEALs, Yet there was no time to celebrate. The compound was far from cleared. Reinforcements could arrive at any moment, and extraction windows were narrow. The pilot's voice remained calm, precise, and unwavering. Advance along the corridor. Suppressive fire aligned. Exit strategy confirmed. Timing is critical. Her words carried authority beyond her position, commanding respect without raising her voice, without aggression. Her intelligence and skill had earned it naturally. As the team moved deeper into the compound, it became clear. The silent female pilot was more than air support. She was the true strategist, the invisible marksman, the one ensuring every SEAL survived the first contact and positioned them for success. The room she had silently transformed in the briefing, the calculations she had made during the flight, and the guidance she now provided in the heat of battle were the difference between life and death. The insertion had been executed flawlessly, the first contact survived, and the team was now deep inside hostile territory. The pilot, watching from above, had already begun orchestrating the next phase of the operation, securing hostages and eliminating remaining threats with surgical precision. The mission had truly begun, and every SEAL knew one truth. The real marksman was not just the one pulling the trigger. It was the mind guiding every shot, every step, every movement. And that mind, silent, calculating, and unyielding, was already proving itself indispensable. The compound's interior was a maze of shadows, narrow corridors, and fortified rooms. Every step the SEALs took was measured, silent, and deliberate. Dust and the metallic scent of tension hung in the air as gunfire echoed from distant guard positions. Each operator moved like a predator, but there was an invisible force directing them, orchestrating every decision. The SEAL commander's voice cut through the comms. "Hold positions. We need eyes on every corridor. Who's the marksman?" His question, intended for the team, hung heavy. The men glanced at one another, tension creeping into their movements. They had trained for long-range precision, but the reality of the operation, the uncertainty, the stakes, made the question more than rhetorical. All eyes, almost instinctively, turned toward the corner where the silent female pilot had remained since insertion. She had never drawn attention, never raised her voice beyond necessary, yet her calm presence had subtly guided every action so far. She had been calculating, observing, coordinating from above, unseen and unchallenged. The team had relied on her without realizing it. Slowly, deliberately, she stood. The movement was quiet but commanding. SEALs instinctively stepped back, giving her space, uncertainty mingling with a growing respect. She strapped on her rifle with precise, methodical movements, and her eyes scanned the compound with lethal focus. The commander's eyes narrowed, realization dawning. "You're the marksman?" he asked, incredulous. She nodded slightly. "I've been observing, calculating trajectories, and providing overwatch from the air," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I will take the shots necessary to neutralize threats and coordinate air support simultaneously." The SEALs, mostly men accustomed to assuming the lead in lethal situations, froze in awe. They had assumed one of them would step forward, yet here was someone, quiet, unassuming, previously overlooked, commanding the battlefield with flawless authority. From her vantage point on a reinforced balcony overlooking the main corridor, she aligned her rifle with a distant enemy guard. Every calculation in her mind was precise. Distance, angle, movement, cover, potential return fire. Her finger hovered over the trigger with absolute confidence. The guard, unaware of the inevitability approaching him, was taken down in a single, controlled shot. The sound was deafening in the corridor but precise, punctuating the silence that had been carefully maintained during the insertion. Another guard attempted to alert his comrades, but she had already calculated his trajectory, timing her next shot to neutralize him before he could react. The SEALs exchanged astonished glances. Even the most battle-hardened operators were witnessing an unprecedented level of skill. The silent pilot was turning what had been a chaotic firefight into a controlled sequence, each shot deliberate, each enemy eliminated with minimal risk to the team. Her eyes never left the compound. "Hostiles advancing northeast corridor," she reported. 2 meters left. Suppressive fire synchronized with my shots. Maintain stealth unless instructed otherwise. The SEALs obeyed without hesitation. They moved through the corridors as if guided by an unseen hand. Every action was amplified by her control, minimizing exposure and maximizing efficiency. Bullets flew, ricocheting off walls, yet the team remained unharmed. Her calculations, timing, and coordination were flawless, transforming danger into opportunity. The commander, moving with the team, muttered under his breath, "She's seeing angles I didn't even consider." His voice carried a mix of awe and respect. Every SEAL had relied on their training, but her presence elevated their effectiveness beyond anything previously experienced. As the team advanced deeper into the compound, the hostages' voices were faint but audible. Fear and desperation heightened the urgency. The pilot's calm, measured voice guided them precisely. "Left flank clear. Suppressive fire aligned. Corridor secured. Proceed to room 5. Timing critical." The SEALs paused, aligning with her instructions. Bullets cracked through the air, suppressive fire clearing threats ahead. Her precise timing allowed the team to move without unnecessary exposure. The enemy, trained and alert, found themselves neutralized before they could react, a testament to her premeditated calculations and coordination. One SEAL whispered, "I've never seen anyone move like this, like the whole fight is being conducted by one mind." The pilot's eyes never left the target. She identified enemy positions, calculated movements, and directed air support with split-second precision. Explosions in distant rooms were timed to complement her ground tactics. Each engagement was controlled, methodical, and devastatingly effective. The first hostages were located, crouched in fear but unharmed. Relief swept through the SEALs, but the mission was far from over. Reinforcements were likely, and extraction windows were narrow. Every operator remained tense, muscles taut, senses alert. Yet their confidence in the pilot's oversight transformed fear into disciplined focus. She continued, "Advance to the next corridor. Maintain suppressive fire coordination. Extraction point secure. Timing is critical. Any deviation I will compensate, but stay within my guidance." The SEALs moved forward in perfect synchronization, bullets and suppressive fire neutralizing threats as the pilot calculated trajectories with near-robotic precision. Her calm, silent authority dominated the battlefield, leaving no room for error. The commander followed closely, observing her actions. The lesson was clear. Leadership was not about volume, aggression, or bravado. It was about mastery, focus, and calculated precision. She had transformed the team from individual operators into a single, lethal unit. As the team pressed further into the compound, the pilot's presence remained the unseen force dictating life and death. Her identity as the marksman was no longer a question. It was undeniable. Every SEAL understood the truth. The quiet, observing operator, the one initially overlooked, had been the decisive factor in their success. The battle raged around them, yet her precision, coordination, and authority maintained control. She was not just the marksman. She was the operation's heart, the invisible strategist, the calm in the storm. Every shot fired, every movement made, and every life preserved bore the signature of her unparalleled skill. By the time the SEALs secured the central hall of the compound, it was undeniable. The silent female pilot had revealed herself as the true marksman. Her calm efficiency had turned potential chaos into controlled execution. The SEALs, male and seasoned, could only watch in awe as she orchestrated the battlefield with unmatched precision. The mission was far from over, but the first phase, the reveal of the marksman, the assertion of control, and the neutralization of immediate threats, was complete. Her presence had changed everything. What had begun as uncertainty and tension now carried confidence, precision, and the undeniable authority of a warrior who commanded without words. The compound trembled under the chaos of battle. Gunfire echoed off walls, ricocheting through corridors, punctuated by distant explosions. Reinforcements had arrived, enemy fighters moving faster and more aggressively than anticipated. The SEALs were pinned down behind low walls, overturned furniture and debris. Every second counted. Every misstep could mean death. Adrenaline coursed through their veins, muscles taut, senses sharpened. "Suppressive fire! We need to move!" the SEAL commander barked, ducking behind a concrete pillar as bullets tore past. A hailstorm of enemy fire painted the hall with danger. The team was exposed in ways they had not trained for. The enemy knew the compound's layout intimately. Above the chaos, the female A-10 pilot remained calm, her eyes scanning the feeds from drones, night vision overlays, and thermal scopes. Every movement, every angle, every threat was cataloged instantly in her mind. From her aerial vantage point, she could see corridors the SEALs could not, angles that no one else had considered, and threats that even the most experienced operators missed. "Left flank compromised," she reported softly but firmly over comms. "Enemy entering corridor 6, 2 meters from your position. Suppressive fire will engage in 3 seconds. Hold steady. Move only on my mark." The SEALs obeyed without hesitation, their movements synchronized with her instructions. Bullets erupted from enemy positions, yet her coordination allowed the team to avoid exposure. She had calculated every trajectory, timing, and angle perfectly. The chaos, which could have been deadly, was transformed into controlled action under her guidance. One operator, crouched behind debris, muttered under his breath, "I've never felt so covered, and we're under fire from every angle." The pilot's calm voice responded, "Angles are secured. Focus on movement, cover and advance. Suppressive fire is aligned. Extraction path clear, but timing is critical. Follow instructions exactly." Explosions rocked the hall as a grenade detonated in a far corridor, sending a shockwave of dust and debris over the SEALs. They ducked instinctively, gripping their weapons, hearts pounding. Yet the pilot's calculations anticipated this moment. She had already redirected cover fire, neutralizing potential threats before they could reach lethal range. "Target neutralized. Move to next checkpoint. Staircase clear. Suppressive fire continues," she instructed. Her voice, calm and unwavering, anchored the team in the storm of bullets and chaos. The SEALs advanced cautiously, moving as one cohesive unit. Each shot, each movement was guided by her oversight. Enemy reinforcements tried to flank them, but the pilot's precision made every angle a trap for the attackers. Bullets struck walls and floors, sparks flying, yet none of the operators were harmed. Her coordination turned what could have been carnage into controlled elimination of threats. The commander, moving alongside his men, realized the magnitude of her skill. "She's not just guiding, she's controlling the battlefield," he muttered under his breath. Each decision she made, every call she issued, shifted the fight in their favor. Even seasoned veterans could see it. She was indispensable. "Hostiles entering northwest corridor," she said, voice steady. "Suppressive fire ready, timing synchronized. Advance only when cleared." The team followed her instructions to the letter. The enemies attempting the flank were neutralized almost before they knew what was happening. The SEALs, once under immediate threat, now felt the protective precision of her guidance. Every second she coordinated was a lifeline, every calculation an invisible shield. One SEAL glanced upward at her feed on the tablet, whispering, "It's like she sees everything before it happens." His words captured the reality. Her intellect and calm had turned the tide of a chaotic battle. The pilot was more than a marksman. She was a strategist, a guardian, and a tactical genius whose unseen hand dictated life or death. Amid the chaos, the hostages were moved to safety. The SEALs worked quickly but cautiously, covering every angle as instructed. The pilot monitored thermal readings and enemy positions, updating instructions in real time. Move diagonally to staircase. Suppressive fire aligned. Extraction window opens in 20 seconds. Do not hesitate. The SEALs moved exactly as directed. Bullets ricocheted off walls around them, but none struck the team. The pilot's precise timing allowed them to advance unscathed, her calculations accounting for every variable: enemy reaction time, distance, angle, and cover. A fresh wave of enemy fighters approached from the main hall. The SEALs were outnumbered, yet she remained unshaken. Engage only when ready. Overwatch aligned. All angles covered. Target the lead threat first. The team unleashed suppressive fire. The enemies fell systematically, neutralized before they could coordinate. The pilot's guidance ensured that every shot counted, minimizing risk and maximizing impact. The SEALs felt an unprecedented sense of control amid chaos. They moved like shadows, lethal, precise, unstoppable, but all under her silent, commanding watch. One SEAL, panting and checking his ammo, whispered, "I've never relied on someone so completely, and it's working." The commander nodded grimly, eyes scanning the battlefield through the pilot's feed. "She's more than a pilot," he muttered. "She's the force keeping us alive." Moments later, the team reached the staircase, the pilot's voice guiding them without pause. "Stairwell secure. Left flank monitored. Suppressive fire continues. Extraction path ready. Move immediately upon confirmation." The SEALs obeyed. Bullets struck nearby walls, but the operator's precision guidance ensured zero casualties. Her calculations were flawless. Every move, every shot, every breath was orchestrated with lethal efficiency. By the time the SEALs reached the upper level, the enemy reinforcements had been neutralized, the hostages were safe, and the mission had turned from chaos to controlled execution. The team breathed, adrenaline still high, hearts pounding but confidence soaring. They had survived under overwhelming fire, guided entirely by the silent pilot whose marksmanship went beyond bullets. It was intellect, calculation, and calm under pressure. The battlefield, once threatening and unpredictable, was now dominated by her presence. Her ability to anticipate threats, coordinate suppressive fire, and guide the SEALs under heavy enemy assault had saved lives repeatedly. The commander, finally exhaling, said into comms, "She's not just the marksman, she's the reason we're still standing." The SEALs nodded, their respect for the silent pilot absolute. She had transformed chaos into order, panic into precision, and a desperate fight into a controlled, lethal operation. The upper floors of the enemy compound were eerily silent, except for the occasional echo of distant gunfire and the rhythmic thrum of helicopters in the sky above. The hostages, huddled behind the SEALs, were terrified but unharmed, their trust in the operators growing with every precise movement. The team moved as one, coordinated, disciplined, but exhaustion and tension were evident in every step. "Extraction point secure," the SEAL commander asked over comms, scanning the area with a keen eye. "Coordinates locked, wind steady, overwatch active," the pilot responded. Her voice was calm, measured, and unwavering, a steady anchor in the storm of battle. "Path to landing zone clear, hostiles neutralized. Suppressive fire aligned with extraction route. Move immediately upon my signal." The team reached the stairwell leading to the roof, every movement calculated, every angle covered. The pilot monitored the approach from above, her tablet feeding live thermal scans, drone images, and enemy movement predictions directly to the SEALs' devices. She had anticipated threats, accounted for every possible ambush, and synchronized their advance with a precision that bordered on preternatural. "Helicopters inbound," she continued. "Touchdown in 60 seconds. Maintain cover until landing zone is confirmed clear. Extraction window is narrow, timing critical." The SEALs pressed forward. Bullets ricocheted off walls below, evidence that enemy reinforcements were still attempting to intercept them. Yet every movement was guided by the pilot's precise instructions. She directed suppressive fire, pinpointing enemy positions with surgical accuracy while ensuring that every SEAL remained protected. Right flank exposed, she noted. Shift 2 meters left. Engage only when I clear. The team adjusted instantly, moving with fluid synchronization. Each operator was focused, but they relied completely on her guidance. Even the most seasoned members recognized that their survival depended as much on her intellect and timing as on their own training. From above, the pilot identified a hidden sniper on a nearby rooftop, calculating angle, distance, and wind. "Sniper neutralized," she reported almost casually. One shot, perfectly timed, took the threat down before he could alert others. The SEALs, moving forward without knowledge of the danger, continued unharmed. The hostages, guided by 2 operators, moved carefully toward the extraction point. Their fear was palpable, yet every instruction, every calculated step reduced risk. "Extraction route clear for 60-second window," the pilot said. "Move now. Suppressive fire continues. Cover is synchronized." The helicopters touched down in a swirl of dust and sand. The SEALs guided the hostages into the aircraft while maintaining defensive positions, their weapons covering every angle. Above, the pilot scanned the perimeter, ready to neutralize any last-minute threats with lethal efficiency. "Left flank secure," she reported. "Right flank clear. Extraction window remains open for 30 more seconds. Move quickly." One of the younger SEALs glanced at her feed, awe evident in his expression. "She's covering everything, every single angle." "Focus on movement," she replied. "Trust your training, trust my coordination. Extraction is precise. Any deviation increases risk exponentially." Bullets pinged off nearby walls as enemy reinforcements attempted a desperate assault. The pilot's calculations had anticipated this. Suppressive fire from her position, synchronized with the SEALs, ground engagement, neutralized threats before they could interfere with the extraction. The commander called out, "We're almost clear. Hold positions until all hostages are on board." "Coordinates updated," the pilot said. "Move diagonally. Exit aligned with helicopter approach. Suppressive fire active, timing critical." Each SEAL and hostage followed her guidance precisely. There was no hesitation, no confusion, only the lethal efficiency of a team operating under the watchful eye of a mastermind. Within moments, everyone was aboard the helicopters, weapons ready, hostages safe, and the final threats neutralized. The rotors lifted, sand and dust swirling into the night sky. The team looked out across the compound, now in chaos, with enemy forces scattered and neutralized. Relief mingled with exhaustion, yet the sense of accomplishment was undeniable. They had completed the mission under the most extreme conditions imaginable and survived intact. The SEAL commander leaned back, exhaling sharply. "I've seen a lot of operators in my career," he said, voice low but carrying in the cabin. "But I've never seen anyone coordinate an entire mission from start to finish like that. She didn't just provide air support, she controlled the battlefield." The SEALs, still catching their breath, nodded in agreement. The pilot, seated calmly in the corner, monitored the last of the live feeds and coordinated their return flight. There was no celebration, no boast, only the quiet satisfaction of a mission executed flawlessly. One of the operators finally broke the silence. "I can't believe it. She's the reason we're all alive." The pilot's eyes remained focused on the tablet, adjusting minor variables for safe landing. "Precision and timing saved lives tonight," she said softly. "Every step, every calculation, every action was designed to minimize risk. Success depends on preparation and execution, not luck." The helicopters lifted higher into the sky, leaving the chaos of the compound behind. Lights from the base appeared in the distance, a beacon of safety after the perilous journey. The SEALs exhaled collectively, muscles relaxing as adrenaline began to subside. The commander spoke again, finally acknowledging her contribution. You weren't just a pilot, not just a marksman. You were the operation. Every step we took, every threat neutralized, it was because of you. She allowed herself a faint nod, calm and reserved as always. There was no pride, no need for recognition. Her satisfaction came from precision, execution, and ensuring that everyone under her guidance had survived. The mission was effectively complete. The hostages were safe, the SEALs were intact, and the enemy had been neutralized. Yet the operation had revealed something more profound. Leadership, skill, and lethal precision were not always about who was loudest or most visible. Sometimes it was about the quiet, calculated force orchestrating the chaos from an unseen vantage point. As the helicopters flew into the night, the SEALs reflected on what had occurred. They had witnessed something extraordinary. The silent pilot, the true marksman, had saved lives through intellect, timing, and flawless execution. The operation was not just a success. It was a testament to precision, calm under pressure, and the lethal power of a mind that could see the battlefield in ways others could not. The helicopters cut through the night sky, carrying the SEAL team and the rescued hostages toward the relative safety of the forward operating base. Below, the enemy compound smoldered, the remnants of the firefight glowing faintly in the darkness. The operation was complete, yet every operator remained alert, adrenaline still thrumming in their veins. The danger had passed, but the lessons and the memory of the mission would remain etched in their minds forever. Inside the lead helicopter, the SEALs sat tense but breathing easier. The hostages were huddled together, frightened but unharmed. Their wide eyes reflected relief, awe, and disbelief at the sudden, violent precision with which their captors had been eliminated. One of them whispered a quiet thank you, but no words could fully convey the magnitude of what had just occurred. The SEAL commander finally exhaled, the weight of command pressing from weeks of planning, hours of chaos, and the razor-edge tension of the firefight finally lifting. He glanced at the female pilot, still seated quietly at the rear of the cabin, eyes scanning the data feed even as the threat had vanished. Her calm composure was almost unnatural, yet utterly commanding. "You saved lives tonight," he said, his voice low but carrying authority. "Every step, every calculation, every shot, it was because of you." She allowed herself a faint nod, her eyes softening just enough to reveal the faintest trace of fatigue. "I only ensured that the operation followed the plan," she replied. "Precision, timing, and control prevent mistakes. The team executed brilliantly. I simply coordinated from a vantage point that allowed every action to be calculated." A young SEAL broke the silence, awe coloring his voice. "Brilliant doesn't even cover it. You weren't just the pilot. You were the marksman, the strategist, the one keeping all of us alive. I've never seen anything like it." The other operators nodded in agreement, some quietly shaking their heads as if to clear the disbelief. They had been trained for years, hardened in the crucible of combat, yet the calm precision and intellectual mastery displayed by the silent pilot had redefined everything they thought they knew about leadership and marksmanship. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly beneath the moonlight. The smoldering compound was a stark reminder of how close failure could have been. Reinforcements had arrived, threats had escalated, yet the operation remained intact. The SEALs had moved from chaos to precision under her unseen, calculating guidance. Every life preserved, every enemy neutralized, bore the unmistakable signature of her skill. As the helicopter descended toward the base, the team reflected on the journey. Weeks of intelligence gathering, hours of planning, and the tension of flight had culminated in a flawless execution. But more than that, they had witnessed the quiet authority of someone who commanded respect not through words or aggression, but through skill, intellect, and unwavering precision. The SEAL commander broke the reflective silence. Most operators make mistakes in high-pressure environments, but tonight we had someone who anticipated every move, every threat, and every angle. She didn't just support the team, she directed the battlefield itself. That's why everyone's alive. The pilot's calm voice replied, "Success is not about ego or recognition. It is about control, preparation, and execution. Every detail matters. Every calculation saves lives. The team's training ensured success, and my role was to guide, not to dominate." As the helicopter touched down, dust swirling around the landing zone, medics and support teams rushed forward to meet the SEALs and hostages. Equipment was quickly secured, hostages guided to safety, and the team began to process the mission's aftermath. Exhaustion weighed heavily, but so did satisfaction. The mission had been impossible on paper, yet executed flawlessly in reality. The commander finally gestured toward the pilot. "Walk with me," he said, voice soft but deliberate. They stepped aside, away from the operational chaos, allowing the team a moment of decompression. "I have to admit," he continued, "I underestimated you at first. Quiet, observant, almost invisible. I didn't realize until the mission was underway that you were controlling everything from above. You're the reason we succeeded, and the hostages survived." She looked toward the glowing compound in the distance, calm, thoughtful. "I was never invisible. I simply allowed observation and calculation to lead action. Leadership is not always loud or aggressive. Sometimes it is silent, precise, and inevitable." The commander nodded slowly, absorbing the truth. "I've led teams for years, seen countless operators in action, yet what I witnessed tonight was beyond anything I expected. You redefined what it means to be a marksman and a leader." The pilot offered a faint smile, one that carried satisfaction without arrogance. "The mission is never about one person. Success is the culmination of preparation, timing, and teamwork. Every operator executed perfectly. I simply provided oversight from a vantage point they could not access on the ground." As night slowly gave way to the pale glow of dawn, the SEALs gathered near the helicopters, exhausted but alive. Hostages were safe, reinforcements had been neutralized, and the compound was secured. The tension of combat had ebbed, replaced by quiet reflection, gratitude, and the deep respect earned by the silent pilot who had orchestrated the entire operation. The commander addressed the team, voice carrying across the base. "Today, we succeeded because of precision, courage, and unparalleled skill. We survived because one operator combined intellect, timing, and calm to guide every move. Remember this. This is how victories are won." The SEALs exchanged looks, understanding more than words could convey. They had witnessed history in their own way, a testament to the power of calculation, observation, and courage under pressure. The silent A-10 pilot, their marksman, had reshaped their understanding of combat and leadership. As the sun broke over the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, the helicopters prepared for departure. The mission was complete, the team intact, and the hostages safe. The pilot, still calm, prepared for the next assignment, her mind already calculating, planning, anticipating. She had revealed the true meaning of the term marksman, not just the one who fires the shot, but the one who sees the battlefield, controls it, and ensures every action leads to survival. In the aftermath of chaos, her precision, intellect, and unwavering calm had turned what could have been disaster into victory. And for every SEAL on that mission, she had become more than a pilot. She had become a legend.